When the French artist Antoine Watteau submitted this painting in 1717 to the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture, the Academy had no clue on how to classify this work. Entitled The Embarkation for Cythera, it was not a history painting, nor a genre painting, nor a mythological story. So they decided to create a new genre called the Fête Galante, which is an amorous celebration of people wearing masquerade costumes and ball dresses taking place in a parkland setting. It's basically a fantasy of a carefree life dedicated to the delights of love. Watteau painted it in a period right after the death of the Sun King Louis XIV, who had ruled for 72 years, but had made a mess of things in his last years with expensive and unsuccessful wars. After his death, the mood in the country changed to one of hope and enjoyment. The middle class could make some good money again, not having to support the expensive wars, and had time for pleasure and money to buy these kinds of artworks. Watteau not only distinguished himself by the theme he focused on, but also the use of soft colors, creating more an atmosphere than a focus on individual elements in the painting. And he also made a difference by the rich variety in the body languages he captured. Let's have a closer look at these works. Oh, how beautiful can a life full of love be? Seducing people and being seduced. These people were all in for that. People dancing, making music, gentlemen tossing roses in the laps of ladies, whispering sweet things in their ears, and then all going to the bark on the lake. Notice that in the first version of the painting, the boat is a small bark, while Watteau replaced that with a bigger boat in the last version. The boat is surrounded by putti, and its destination is Cythera, a Greek island where, according to legend, the goddess of love Venus stepped onto land after she was born from the foam of the sea. Cythera was considered the sanctuary of love, and thus the perfect destination for this group of carefree people pursuing love. The painting by Watteau is known under several names. The Academy to whom he submitted it called it La Fête Galante, which can be translated as the Feast of Courtship. It's also known as the Pilgrimage to Cythera, as that was really what the people were doing. Notice the pilgrim staff that several of them are holding. Looking closer at the painting, we can see a statue of Venus on the right. She is shown naked, just like the various putti. But the people in contrast are dressed beautifully in the latest fashions. Watteau put his efforts into creating a variation of beautiful dresses and outfits, but if we look at the faces, especially of the ladies, you will notice that they look very similar, representing one particular type of beauty. The focus is not on the individual, but on the collective experience and fantasy of love and being in the moment. Jean-Antoine Watteau was 25 years old when he created this painting, known as the Embarkation for Cythera, which is now in the Stedel Museum in Frankfurt. It's a much less spectacular version of the grander versions we saw before, but it formed the basis for the Rococo art movement, both in terms of the style and the theme of the painting. In 1712, Watteau was accepted as an associate member of the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture. One of the requirements for every new artist to become a full member was to create a so-called reception piece, basically to show that they belonged at the Academy. Watteau's career, however, was just taking off, and he worked instead on a bunch of commissions to make some money. After receiving some reprimands concerning the lack of a reception piece, in January 1717, he finally decided to create that required work. He created an extension of his earlier Embarkation to Cythera, measuring 120 by 190 centimeters or some 50 by 75 inches. It would take him 8 months to complete this work. The painting was received with mixed responses. The Academy praised the work for its charm and refinement and its Rococo sensibility, but also had trouble classifying it in one of their traditional painting categories. they decided to create a new category for Watteau's work known as the Fête Galante. On the one hand, this was pretty cool, as it meant he was an innovative painter and it formally classified Watteau as the inventor of this new genre, even until today. However, there was also a caveat, which was that the Academy had a strict hierarchy of art genres, with history painting being the most important one. For example, you could only become a professor at the Academy if you were a history painter, and as Watteau did not belong to that category, there were no chances of becoming more influential at the Academy. Anyway, Watteau did not seem to care much, as he continued to paint in this new style, creating a third version of the Embarkation to Cythera in 1719, which you can see here and is on display at the Charlottenburg Palace in Berlin. It was originally bought by King Frederick II of Prussia, who was a hard-working man who was intrigued by the fantasy scenes of Watteau about a carefree life. Art historians have debated whether the title of the painting, The Embarkation for Cythera, is actually a correct one or not. The argument centers around the presence of a statue of Venus. Why would there be a statue of her if the people are about to enter a boat that will take them to the island of Venus? Would this not mean that they are already on the island of Venus and that they are actually about to return home from their pilgrimage? One more question is whether the type of scenes that Watteau captured were only fantasies or whether they also occurred in real life. The answer is yes. The richer French people did actually take part in these outdoor, happy and carefree outings. It is not clear if Watteau ever attended one though, as he would not be wealthy enough to belong to this class, but it is certainly possible that he would have received some invitations to attend a fête galante through one of his wealthy commissioners. There are no official records though of the presence of Watteau on these outdoor pleasures, and according to his contemporaries who described his character, he would probably not have fit in, as Watteau is described as restless, moody, shy and even awkward. Watteau preferred to be on his own, completely dedicated to his art. He did not really enjoy the success of his new art genre and would die at age 36, probably from lead poisoning. Well, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of the Pilgrimage to Cythera, an early Rococo work. If you did, please support the channel by clicking the thumbs up button and consider subscribing to be alerted when new art videos become available. Thanks for watching.